AI business is still a business. A lot of people right now just want to do an AI business, and what they mean is I want something automatic, I want something passive. No, that's still nonsense. Good morning, everybody. My name is Kyle, and we're going to be talking about the latest AI news and updates of the day. And we have a big one today. Claude Code is now available on the web. So I have access. I have a max plan in Claude, which is normally, I think, $200 a month. This is going to be important later because the limitations are going to be important here. This is a big deal, a really big deal. We're going to talk about what exactly Claude Code is and why this is exciting. I'm going to give you a quick run through of my version. I built something just before this live, and we'll have a look at it and see how it went. The news here is that Claude Code, one of the most powerful coding tools available, is now available in a web version. Specifically, you can go into Claude and there is a new button which says Code, and that allows you to access Claude Code directly in your browser. Even more exciting, you can access it on your telephone via the Claude app, which means I am never going to sleep again, because if I'm sleeping, I'm not productive. There were ways to use Claude Code on your telephone. For example, you could remote access in. There are ways to give it a nice visual interface on the desktop as well, but it all required a bit of a workaround. It required you to know what you were doing with Claude Code and then to apply these additional layers to make your life a bit easier. Claude have just done away with all of that by giving us a web version. So introducing Claude Code on the web. You can now delegate coding tasks to Claude without opening your terminal. This is a very Anthropic way to say it. You can delegate coding tasks to Claude without opening your terminal is a very tech and code specific way to explain what this is. They're talking to the developers here who are, I don't think, necessarily the people who are going to be excited about this. Compare this to something like Lovable, where Lovable's tagline is, creating the last piece of software. Because once we create this piece of software, you'll be able to create all other pieces of software. What Claude Code have done is they've built their own version of Lovable, and we're going to look into why this is exciting. It's much closer to a vibe coding tool that anyone can pick up and play with. There's still some limitations that require some technical knowledge, but it's a lot easier than before. But Anthropic, in true Anthropic style, are still saying you can delegate coding tasks without opening your terminal. With Claude Code on the web, assign multiple tasks that run in parallel while you monitor and steer from your browser or iOS app. Cool. Ideal for tackling bug backlogs, routine fixes, and parallel development work. So they are putting it forward as a tool for high-end developers who are already using Claude Code in the command line interface. They know what they're doing. Anthropic saying that's cool, but now you can also check in and do minor work via the web app. So they're very much targeting this at existing developers, but I think it's wider than this. Claude Code on the web is now in beta as a research preview for Pro and Max users. Let's have a look at it. The reason this is exciting is because Claude Code is really powerful, but unless you know what you're doing, you know your way around the command line interface, you know how to install dependencies, you know how to use terminal on Mac, for example, then you're not going to be able to access it. So I've got on screen right now the current Claude Code setup guide, which the standard installation, step 1 is to install Claude Code, run the following command. It doesn't tell you where. You just open up your terminal, but they assume you know that. The command is npm install -g at Anthropic AI Claude Code. It requires somebody to know how to use a terminal. They also need dependencies. I think they need Node.js 18, etc. So they'd have to install that first. For somebody who's never used a command line, it's just going to be very difficult for them to get access to Claude Code. What they've done with Claude Code web version is reduce that barrier. So this is my version of Claude. I actually have access to something which isn't public yet. So I'm going to make sure that's not visible. I'm allowed to talk about it on Thursday. For full disclosure, I have been given access to Claude Max plan, which is normally, I think, $200 a month. I get it for free, and I get previews of things so I can try them out early. So I've now got Claude Code web open on my browser. The way you find it is there's a code button added to the sidebar. Claude Code is in research preview. What you can see on screen is very similar to a Lovable, to a Bolt, to a Replete, to any other kind of vibe coding tool, where you have on the left-hand side a message window where you can talk to it. I notice you can only submit. You could change your prompt and say, let's discuss this. It's nice to have an ask mode, which they have in other tools. And then you connect Claude Code to a GitHub repository. Again, you have to know what GitHub is, which some people starting out won't know. So there's a few hoops you need to jump through, and then you can build an application using chat. It uses Claude Code, one of the best coding agents out there, built on top of Sonnet 4.5. I put in a very basic prompt. At the moment, I'm doing a daily workout at home, and I wanted to create a basic tracking app that allows me to, as I work through that workout, tick things off. So I want to build a web app for my daily workout routine. Here's the routine, and I gave it the routine. That's all I gave it. And then I said, let's design an app for tracking. It built the folder structure, it created the HTML with the workout blocks, CSS styling, JavaScript for tracking. It made it so it's persistent, so it will remember workouts, etc. And it built everything and it did it in one go. The result is fine. I gave it very basic instructions, but it allows me to reset the workout, it allows me to tick things. It built me a timer. I didn't ask it to, but that's a nice thing to do. So I can tick my 5K run. Then I've got shadow boxing. Again, I can tick these. I can set timers. It's got rest timers as well. But then it's got things like push-ups, standing band rows, etc. I'm going to flesh this out, but the basics are all here. And then some rehab work for my ankle and a stretch and cool down. This is now an application that I can open anywhere because it is on a web page. I can use this as a quick and dirty application to track my workout. Of course, I could have used pen and paper, but we don't do that anymore. We build things. So it works really well. It is Claude Code, but it is inside a web browser and it is available on the application as well. This is really big, not for people who are developers already, because they are comfortable with the command line interface. They're going to be fine with what they have already. This is for them probably a nice little addition because it allows you to quickly make corrections or create a little branch while you're on your phone. Maybe you have an idea and you're like, oh, maybe we could try this, and then you can merge it later. I think for serious developers, though, this is probably just a nice to have rather than a really exciting, essential new tool. For people who are dabbling with vibe coding, maybe they've used Lovable, maybe they've used Bolt, and they're looking for the next step. The next step tends to be something like Cursor, which is a more complicated but more powerful tool, or Claude Code or ChatGPT Codex. These are like the next steps. They are much more technical. That technical barrier has now been reduced and Claude Code can be accessed by pretty much anyone. There are still going to be some hoops, like when you want to run this, you need to have a local server, which for a lot of people is, what the hell is that? How do I do that? These are things that can be worked out. So I'm excited. I think this is awesome. I'm glad that they've pushed it through. I think what we'll see though is the response will be muted because the people who are excited about this kind of stuff will think, oh, I don't need this. I'm already using Claude Code. What's this for? Who's this for? Whereas the people who do need this won't necessarily know how exciting this is. So I think it's going to be a weird product launch for that reason. But personally, I'm very excited. I'm going to hop over to some questions. Hey, Joshua, how are you doing? I'm going to try to hop over some questions if I can find my pedal. There we go. So it's Claude Code. You go into Claude, there will be a code button on the left-hand side. I think it's rolled out everywhere. One issue will be how much capacity you have. It's only on the paid plans right now, not on the free plan. On the pro plan, which is $20 a month, there may be a limited amount that you can do with it. I have not tested this. I haven't seen anyone talking about it, but I know Anthropic of being not mean. They've limited capacity on some of their models and tools. So I would not be surprised if we see something similar with Claude Code, with a lot of people later today being like, what the hell? I gave it 3 prompts and I've run out of space for the day. I wouldn't be that surprised. If you are on the max plan, which is $200 a month, obviously you're going to get a lot more. I have no idea how much yet, so I'll mess around a bit later. But I imagine this will be a problem. Daniel says, what's your take on talk about the AI bubble? The most important thing when we are talking about the AI bubble is to realize that technology and investment are linked, but you can have a bubble in one without a bubble in the other. The best example of this in recent years has been the internet. So back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, we had a period where a huge amount of money, dumb money, was thrown at any company that had .com in its name. Pets.com is the famous example, where the pet shop managed to raise a huge amount of money just because they had a website, and everyone was like, the internet is the future. It's all about the internet. And they just threw loads of cash at companies like Pets.com, who then did not have the revenues, they did not have the business in place to actually justify the valuations in the investment that was being thrown at them. But money was being chucked at them speculatively because a few internet companies did very well and everybody wanted to jump on the bandwagon. So the dumb money flowed into these investments. We are probably seeing the same with artificial intelligence right now, where any company with the word AI or agent in its name will get money chucked at it. So I'm about to look at something called Open Evidence, which is basically ChatGPT for doctors, which when I actually looked at it, seems like a very basic tool. They just raised 200 million and about a $6 billion valuation for what to me looks like a wrapper on ChatGPT. Doesn't mean it's not valuable. I don't know if it justifies that valuation. A lot of cash is being thrown at AI because people are getting greedy and they want to make high returns on their investment. That means that they're throwing money not only at good businesses that use artificial intelligence, but at poorly thought out businesses where AI is the entire business plan. If you look at the Y Combinator cohort for this year, it's all things like Lovable for pets, Lovable for web developers, which is a bizarre one. There's a lot of copying, there's a lot of emulating, there's a lot of non-valuable companies out there. So we might see a correction. We might see a financial correction where suddenly the markets are like, oh, wait, hang on, we're not creating any value. Why are we throwing all this cash at it? And we'll see a crash down. Could be a recession, could be a depression, it could be a small correction. We do not know. At the moment, it's looking messy. However, that is a financial bubble. A financial bubble is not the same as a technology bubble. So there are other technologies in recent times where people got really excited and we never really found a use case for it. Most Web3 technologies, blockchain, cryptocurrencies, NFTs, etc., are better examples of a technology bubble. Something where it's hyped up by the companies who are pushing it, but there's no actual adoption in the public. Yeah, sure, there'll be a very loud minority, mainly on Twitter, who are telling you need to buy NFTs. The public outside, though, not using them, don't care, have no interest in it, which means the bubble in this case is the technology itself, not necessarily the investment. These are two very different things. What I think we'll see with AI in particular is a financial correction, but then we will have generative AI in the same way that out the back of the internet boom and bust, we had the internet, which has changed society entirely. I think generative AI, the current modern AI, is of that ilk and that importance. I don't think AI is going away, but we will potentially see a financial correction in the next couple of years. The problem is most people combine the two. They think when all these companies come crashing down, AI will go away. No, it's too useful. It's been used by 10% of the world's population already in a way that NFTs, blockchain, crypto, virtual reality, the Internet of Things, they never had that kind of impact because they weren't useful enough. So that is Claude Code web version. Go and try it if you have access to it and tell me what you think. I'm going to be playing around with it today for the rest of the week probably. I use Claude Code anyway. This just makes it so much easier, especially if you're non-technical. This is related to Anthropic, so related to Claude. Reid Hoffman, he set up LinkedIn. He was a co-founder. He's currently using AI to cure cancer with Manus Co, disrupting drug development and finding cures faster. Okay, cool. Good job, Reid. So Reid Hoffman, co-founder of LinkedIn, and he's written a few books. He's a technologist. So he says, I want to state plainly, in all industries, especially in AI, it's important to back the good guys. Anthropic, the creators of Claude, are one of the good guys. More thoughts about why we need to fuel innovation and talk safely at the same time. Reid actually says, I usually try to avoid commenting directly on the hyperscalers. I led OpenAI's first round and Greylock is an investor in Anthropic, but I feel very strongly that it's important to comment here. I would say the below as strongly even if no investment existed. So he's come out as somebody who's influential in this technology and business as a whole. He's backing Anthropic. He's saying, hey, these are the good guys and make sure we support the good guys. He's not explicitly saying who the bad guys are. I don't think he mentions the bad guys, but it will be people like Grok and Elon Musk. Anthropic, along with some others, including Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI, are trying to deploy AI in the right way, thoughtfully, safely, and enormously beneficial for society. That's why I'm intensely rooting for their success. So the ones he's left out here are XAI, Elon Musk's AI, and Meta, Mark Zuckerberg's. And that is fair, I would say. OpenAI, I would say, are up for debate. For me, they would sit between. I'm not sure if they're the good guys. I'm not sure if they're the bad guys. They are ambiguous. Whereas I would say that Google and Anthropic, for sure, are good guys right now. Some other labs are making decisions that clearly disregard safety. Yes, that's XAI, and societal impact. E.g. bots sometimes go full fascist. He is explicitly talking about XAI here. And that's a choice. Extreme arguments on either side of an issue are often used to brush away real, thoughtful and logical arguments. Doing that is intellectually dishonest or idiotic, and unfortunately that is most of the rhetoric around artificial intelligence at the moment, saying it's going to destroy us all and we need to stop it right now, which is no longer practical. Often there are disingenuous arguments like the water usage from people who aren't interested in listening or hearing about the more nuanced arguments. Reducing what should be a societal level conversation about the responsible use of AI technology to a series of platitudes, empty words, or alarm bells is not helpful to the billions of humans who will have their lives changed by AI. In many places, including my book this year, Super Agency, I have advocated strongly a light-touch regulatory landscape that prioritizes innovation and enables new players to compete on level playing fields. Being pro-AI safety is not being pro-language police. For example, there are critical AI safety topics in biosecurity and cybersecurity that need to be discussed. The benefits of the Industrial Revolution, but history has also shown us the great errors humanity made in the transition. Let us learn and innovate. So he's basically saying, look, we need nuanced adult discussions about what is going on. And I fully agree with this. He's saying this is not radical by any means. History tells us the path to a better world is through dialogue, technology, and iterative deployment. Anthropic, OpenAI, and many others are living. I'm in support with Reid Hoffman here. I know good guys, bad guys is very polarizing. Things like XAI not releasing model cards, basically not discussing the safety and the guardrails that they put on XAI is kind of spitting in the face of the rest of the industry, which has decided this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to push this forward in a sensible way and make sure we're open about alignment and regulation. And XAI being like, no, I'm not doing that, and allowing not safe for work generation directly inside the app, etc. I don't want to call them bad guys, but I can see the battle lines that Reid Hoffman is drawing up here. This will not be popular, especially because he's posting on Twitter. I'm sure Elon Musk's supporters will come out against it. But I think this is important. It needs to be said that we need to discuss this stuff like adults instead of screaming at each other from the pro or the anti sides. So that's why I wanted to quickly flag it up. I'll put it in the newsletter so you can read it all in full. I think it's a nuanced take and there aren't enough of them. I have lots of books behind me, AI books, and I do have a number of anti-AI books. If anyone builds it, we all die. Is that what it's called? Everyone Dies, which is a great title for a book. From what I've read of it so far, it's a solidly argued book, but it misses the point that we can't unilaterally regulate this stuff now, because if the US and the West does, China isn't going to, and vice versa. This is a global issue right now. This is a humanity issue. This is not just about a bunch of guys in San Francisco. This is all of us. And we need to put it in that kind of perspective. How do you monetize your business? It's not a business if it's not monetized. I have about 5 or 6 different revenue streams. I give workshops myself. I charge about $2,000 for a 1-hour workshop. So that's a good, solid base of cash. I teach other people and I license out my workshop materials so they can go and talk to businesses. That's my second revenue stream. I do some sponsorship, but not really that much. It's something that I'm looking at doing more of. My problem with sponsorship is that most of the AI tools out there aren't very good, and I'm not going to promote them. So I'm more interested, I'm going to push on this next year in getting sponsorship from tools that I actually use on a daily basis and would be happy to talk about. But if it's some crappy AI video generator or AI girlfriend company, and I get several companies a day coming to me and saying, hey, can you push this for us and we'll give you $1,000 or whatever, but it would be like an AI girlfriend. I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. I have some courses and educational content that I sell. I have a premium newsletter and community, like a private WhatsApp group, and then I do a bit of coaching, advisory, one-on-one consultation. So I have about 5 or 6 different revenue source or monetization streams for the business. Thomas points out the AI Authority Accelerator. That's one of my courses, helping people carve out their space in their industry, their particular market, their niche, talking about artificial intelligence. So you can become the person who talks about AI for marketers or AI for social workers or AI for doctors, for example, helping people to get started producing short form video. A lot of people find that absolutely terrifying, by giving them a set of exercises to go through, what videos you should be shooting just to get started, to build up confidence, to build up a creative habit, and then going from there. How many followers are you at, Tomas? Are you at 5,000? Helping people to do social media, which is really important right now because AI is a complicated topic and there's a huge amount of news and updates every single day, and helping other people keep up to date with it is really important. This is very important technology and it's going to be changing people's lives. So if you can help by educating, by creating content, then I highly recommend it. Daniel says, which AI company should we be cautious about? I think Reid Hoffman flagged up the goodies. OpenAI, I think, are okay. They're new and they are working things out as they go along. They're scrappy. Microsoft and Google will be fine, and Anthropic are definitely goodies. The ones you need to be wary of, I would say XAI and Meta, so Facebook. The way to monetize AI is to make AI do what the customer already does, but better and easier. An AI business is still a business. Whatever your business is, you can leverage it with AI. You can do it faster. You can reduce costs. You can increase the size of it without having to hire more people. But the business itself still needs to be a business. A lot of people right now just want to do an AI business, and what they mean is I want something automatic, I want something passive. No, that's still nonsense. You need to create something that's valuable and get it out to people who are willing to pay for it. That is the core of what a business is. AI just helps us to do that in different ways, but it still needs to be a business. We can't shortcut that, unfortunately. I went from 0 to 4,000 followers within a few months while still having a 9-to-5 job. It's about consistency with social media. If you just put in the work over a period of time, which always seems too long, eventually there will be a reward to it. But most people give up before that, unfortunately. Okay, I wanted to hop over to one piece of news. It is a company called Open Evidence. Open Evidence, which is the ChatGPT for doctors, raises $200 million at a $6 billion valuation. Congratulations. Open Evidence is a tool that doctors and nurses have likened to ChatGPT for medicine. Sounds a bit like that's the company saying that, but that's fine. Plans to announce a $200 million raise at $6 billion valuation. Oh, plans to announce. I'm not sure if they've done it or not. The fresh funds come 3 months after the startup raised $200 million at a $350 billion valuation. So they're off to the moon. Once you start getting investment, it becomes a lot easier to get more investment. A testament to the intense investor interest in industry-specific AI applications. Trained on medical journals like JAMA and the New England Journal of Medicine, the Open Evidence platform helps users quickly get answers to existing medical knowledge to help treat patients. Verified medical professionals can access Open Evidence's tool, which is supported by advertising for free. How are they going to make back their money? Very interesting. Open Evidence has grown quickly since its founding in 2022. Its numbers of clinical consumptions have nearly doubled to 15 million per month. 15 million consultations per month. It's led by Google Ventures, etc. This is a puff piece to talk about they're raising more money. These kind of things do well when you want to raise even more money. So you make sure you publicize that you're raising cash so other people want to jump in. We just talked about the investment bubble. What I wanted to point out is how simple this idea is. I'm sure there are engineers, I'm sure the CEO, the marketing team would push back on this. But this basically sounds like a database using RAG, or retrieval augmented generation, to pull information from this specific database, which has been trained on the New England Journal of Medicine and other medical journals, probably fine-tuned. So this is something that is not that hard to do. The tools for building this kind of thing are quite easy. So it is a ChatGPT wrapper. I know this has a bad reputation in the industry, but wrapped around ChatGPT as a model with fine-tuning and RAG for the actual, based on the actual data, and then a chatbot. That's kind of it. That kind of thing is pretty easy to build, but what they've done is still managed to raise a huge amount of money because it is valuable. There are 15 million requests or clinical consultations per month. I don't know if that counts as one chat message or one chat. That shows me that people are actually using it. And it doesn't matter if this is just a ChatGPT wrapper. It doesn't matter if this is basically a vector database with some fine tuning and then a chatbot strapped on top. As long as it is useful and the end user or the customers, although in this case they're not customers, they are just the users. As long as they find it valuable, how you build it doesn't matter. We see a lot of criticism of people who build ChatGPT wrappers, and they'll get criticized like, oh, it's just ChatGPT with some filters and some custom instructions. How are you making any money? You have to remember that most people do not know how to go and query ChatGPT for this kind of information. Most people do not know how to protect against hallucinations. Most people don't know how to fine tune a model. Like very few people do. So by taking a bit of extra time to create a version of ChatGPT which is tuned specifically for this use, this company has reached a $6 billion valuation. not rocket science, it's creating something valuable and putting it out into the world, leveraging AI technologies. So congratulations to them. And I'm sure they'll be criticized for being a rapper, a $6 billion rapper, but it does not matter as long as what you are creating is valuable for the end user. So I think that is a useful reminder, and I'm sure people will be bitching and whining about it anyway. So the main news for today was Claude Code, the web version. Make sure you go and try it if you have access to it. It's going to be on the Pro and Max versions of Claude, and you're going to be able to find it directly in your normal Claude interface. It's going to be on the left-hand side, which compared to previous methods of accessing, way easier. So I'm very excited that Claude Code is now accessible by everybody. I'm going to be playing around with it today, although it basically seems like the command line interface version, but in a nice interface, which is fantastic. All of this is available on YouTube. These recordings will be edited and placed onto YouTube. They also go into the newsletter, which comes out tomorrow. So tomorrow will be the newsletter summary of what I've just covered today, and it will have all the links. So I'll give the link to Reid Hoffman's Twitter thread about the good guys and the bad guys in AI. I'll give some instructions about how to access Claude Code. So make sure you're subscribed to the newsletter and to YouTube. I already have a website, but I'm also going to be moving all of the newsletter content onto the website as well. So it's going to be an easier way to access it. I'm currently vibe coding a migration tool, which would have been ready if Amazon Web Services didn't crash and demolish my Vercel deployment, which was very annoying. Apparently, a few months ago, the AWS head proudly boasted that 75% of their code is now written by AI. So that might be to blame for what happened yesterday. I don't think we have the full picture yet, but when we do, I'll be covering it. If it is AI caused, so that's going to set back AI coding a bit. Right, thank you so much, everybody. Make sure you subscribe to the newsletter and YouTube, and I will see you tomorrow for more AI news and updates.